Hi, boys and girls. Today we're going to read a story titled Down to the Sea with Mr. Magee. And in this story, this guy right here, he's Mr. Magee. He and his dog, Dee, decide to pack a lunch one morning and take their lunch with them on a boat ride to the sea. And we're going to see what they get into when they're taking their trip to the sea. So let's get started. Down to the Sea with Mr. Magee. The author who wrote the words and the illustrator who drew the pictures looks like it's the same person, and that person is Chris Van Dusen. Down to the Sea with Mr. Magee. Oh, before I get started, there are lots of rhyming words in this book, so be on the listen for those rhyming words. Mr. Magee and his little dog Dee loved spending time in their boat on the sea. So early one morning at 6:32, they made a decision. That's just what they'd do. Right after breakfast, Magee packed a lunch. Sandwiches, carrots, a thermos of punch, a big box of raisins, some sweet pickled beets, chocolate chip cookies, and crunchy dog treats. With plans for the day and enough lunch for three, they hopped in the car and drove down to the sea. There they are in their boat. The pair left the dock at 7 o'clock and motored their way around Eagle Egg Rock. They passed the lighthouse and by the old wreck, with Magee at the wheel and Dee on the deck. Then suddenly spied off the bow to the east a big pod of whales. There were 50 at least, splashing about in the bright morning sun, feasting on shrimp and sardines by the ton. And here's the pod of whales, the big group. But one little whale who had eaten his fill, munching on minnows and plankton and krill, was bored with his breakfast, and since he was through, he swam off in search of something to do. That little whale is this guy down here. So he wants to find something to do. Now Dee and Magee in their boat on the bay didn't notice the whale that was heading their way. They were watching the other whales put on a show, and soon that young whale was directly below, which means he was directly under their boat. You can see the outline of the whale. Here's the head, and you can see a fin and his tail and his body. So he was right under them. From under the sea, the little whale spied Magee and Dee's boat, but not them inside. He longed for adventure. He wanted to play. So he bumped at the boat in a most friendly way. Then the whale placed his blowhole directly below, and ever so gently he started to blow. So what do you think's going to happen to the boat if he puts the boat on his blowhole and begins to blow? What do you think's going to happen to that boat? Let's see. Let's find out. Oh my goodness. Magee saw the bubbles. He felt the boat sway. Then up went the boat on a fountain of spray. Look at that. There's the whale down there. There's his whenever he blows out of his blowhole, that water spout picks him up in the air. Higher and higher the little boat flew, as harder and harder that little whale blew. Then the whale blew a blast as hard as he could, much harder, in fact, than a little whale should. And that final blast blew the boat way up in the sky, first 30, then 40, then 50 feet high. The boat kept on rising, but it didn't stop there. Wind hit it hard, and it flew through the air. Dee and Magee sailed over the sea, when all of a sudden, they got stuck in a tree. So there they were, stranded, Magee and his pup, in the top of a spruce, 60-something feet up. You can see the whale here. From their perch in the sky, the two watched in dismay as the whale far below swam swiftly away. Magee was downhearted. Just what could he do? They seemed hopelessly stuck, but little Dee knew the secret to get the boat safely unpinned was to rock back and forth and wait for the wind. So they rocked and they rocked for an hour or so, but the boat didn't budge because the wind didn't blow. Just when they thought they'd be stuck there all night, they spotted far off a spectacular sight. What did they see? Away in the distance, across the blue bay, the whales, all 50, were heading their way. Right here. They swam through the water in one long straight row, then gathered around the small island below. Magee looked down at the circle of whales surrounding the island and raising their tails. He felt a bit nervous, a little bit tense, when all of a sudden it made perfect sense. They're trying to save us, he shouted with glee. Hold on, Dee, hold on as tight as can be. Their tails slapped down with a thunderous crash, which in turn created a super high splash that covered the island and raced up the tree and dislodged the boat and set them both free. Dee was so happy she let out a yelp. Magee tipped his hat to the whales for their help. Thank you, my friends, for saving the day. Then they all waved goodbye and the whales swam away. On the way home, little Dee had a thought. What about all that food they had brought? In all the excitement, they ate not one bite. So they saved it and had it for dinner that night. The end. So, the little whale at the beginning of the book, you notice that he didn't have anything to do. He got bored, so he found a boat that he wanted to play with. He didn't know anybody was inside the boat, so that's why he played with it. He put it up on top of his blowhole and blew, and it sent the boat way up in the sky, and then the wind caught the boat, and it blew the boat on the top of a tree. And then who came to save the day? Who came to save them out of the tree? The whales did. They all worked as a team. That big whale pod, a group of whales is called a pod. And so the big whale pod went and helped them, and they saved the day. I hope you guys enjoyed. Bye.